About 3 years ago, I installed a Ford 88 into my Jeep Cherokee. Today, I'd kind of like to do an overview slash review of how that's been going and kind of give you some of the pros and cons if you're thinking about doing this yourself. I did the swap on a 1998 Jeep Cherokee Sport. So my Jeep was totally stock when I first got it, and it had a Chrysler 8 1/4 in the back with an open diff. So I was kind of looking to improve on that because I was going out to Moab. I hated the one wheel peel and all the slipping off road. So I was trying to fix that and come up with something a little bit more heavy duty. So right after that first trip to Moab, when I got back, I was looking for a way to upgrade, and a buddy I knew had this 88 Ford laying around, and it came out of a 2001 Sport Trac, and it's not typically the most sought after diff to get because it comes with drum brakes, and a lot of times it doesn't have the 410 gear ratio. But some things going for it was it did have 31 spline, and it did have a really good condition posi traction unit that was factory Ford unit. And with all the aftermarket support, it didn't really matter. So I was getting it for free. He let me have it for free, and he was like, "Yeah, just use it. Like, I know you're gonna use it." So East Coast Gear Supply sells this kit for about $150, and it comes with the spring perches, the U-bolts, the spring plates, and the mounting brackets for the shocks. So I was like, well, that's a pretty good deal. And then I had to get, this one came with 373 gear, so I had to get a Ford Racing 410 gear set, ring and pinion. So I got that, and basically then I also sprung for this rust stuff diff cover, which was another $150. So all in, it was around $450 to $500 for everything. But I was like, that's still a really good deal. Getting the bigger ring gear, getting the bigger axle tubes. Some other things I did that didn't cost really anything was I welded the axle tubes both sides, and the drum brakes just made it really plain and simple. Even the brake lines off the Ford worked perfectly for the Jeep. I didn't have to do anything. I just basically bolted in the parking brake cables, mounted right up. So it was really simple. Just had to center it in the Jeep, set the pinion angle, and just kind of just tacked everything in, and then took it back apart, welded everything back together, set where the shocks should go, did the same thing. So it was really basic. The only other thing I needed was this adapter to go from a 1310 U-joint to the Ford flat flange. Now, East Coast Gear Supply does sell the right flange to go to a Jeep drive shaft, but it's pretty steep. It's about $150 for that, and I think this route was only about $35. I ended up just putting in new U-joints too, so whatever that cost, but it needed to be done anyway. So when I did all this, I didn't have a slip yoke eliminator, so I just had the typical slip yoke that every Jeep has. And I set the pinion angle, which worked at the time, was a little bit more flat, more level to the ground, but I ended up having to get some wedges, and I can't remember what degree these are, but I had to nose up this one after I did the slip yoke eliminator to get all the vibration out of the driveline. So some of the cons, if you don't know about the Ford 88, is that each axle length is actually a little bit different, and the diff isn't actually centered into the truck. It's slightly to the right. So this axle, is a little bit shorter than the passenger side, which is going to put your drive shaft a little bit crooked, which isn't a huge deal. It barely vibrates at all. Like I can go 85 in this thing, and it's really pretty smooth. So just be mindful of that depending on your muffler. I'm actually running a Ford Crown Vic muffler that's pretty big right now, and it's pretty close, but it doesn't hit. And benefit of this axle is it's the same exact bolt pattern as Jeep's, so I was able to use the same wheels that I had. I had to use different lug nuts though, off of the Sport Trac. So keep that in mind. Your Jeep lug nuts the threads are just a little bit smaller, a different thread pattern on those. So that's something to keep in mind. So on top of the axles being different sizes, the actual whole axle assembly is about an inch to inch and a half less wide than the Jeep axle used to be, which isn't a huge deal. As you can see, it tucks up really nice. It's not a big deal. Like the wheels I bought now are offset pretty good, so if you're being really anal about it, you could get wheel spacers, and I think East Coast Gear Supply sells those too. I never felt the need to get them. It doesn't bother me at all. It looks totally fine. Even if you bought bigger tires, they'd fit perfectly fine in there too. So the big question is, would I do it again? My answer is going to be yes. This has been a great axle. It's given me no troubles, no noises. The posi traction works every time. You can do a burnout, roast both tires. It works great off road. It barely slips. It's to me, it's been really good. And with the extra, the diff cover and stuff like that, and just the kind of peace of mind of all the parts working together, to me, for about the $500 I put into it or so, it's totally worth it. I know Dana 44s are really hard to come across in these anymore in the junkyards, but to me this has been really simple, straightforward swap. Pretty much anybody could do with a welder. So yeah, I would say yes, this has been worth it. Alright guys, I'd just like to say thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll be sure to answer them. And if you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Alright, thanks.